I think my dog is seeing a ghost, and it's freaking me out. I got home this morning from being out and decided to take a nap. My dog came along and fell asleep right next to me. After about an hour or so he starts growling quietly. It soon grows louder to the point where I sit up, then he starts barking. I have never heard him bark so loud and mean. I then see all the hair on his neck is up. All while he is doing this he is looking around the room, moving his head back and forth, almost watching something circling my bed. When I saw this I screamed out, "If you're not here, in the name of the Lord, leave," and it all stopped. He would occasionally growl a little after that, but nothing like it was. This has happened before where he starts barking at things that aren't there, but it only seems to happen in my room and only when I am sleeping. I don't know what to do. I'm petrified of this, and today has convinced me that it is something dark. Do you believe in giants? I posted this in another sub, so I figured I ought to put it here as well. Do you believe in giants? Neither do I, but this happened all the same. Back when I was a teenager there was this girl I snuck out at night to see just about every night. Neither of our families liked the other, so this was the only way we could see each other. Anyway, we generally met at a church that was about halfway between our houses. That night we met up and hung out for a while, and it started to get really foggy. The fog was coming in from her way and it was so thick you literally could not see through it. It was like a wall of fog was coming down the highway. So we walked back to my house and got in my mom's car. On the road to my house, there was a church and it had a tall street light. We looked back and saw a shadow cross that light, but it was so foggy we could not tell what it was. But whatever it was big. Tall, very tall too, as that street light was at least 30 feet in the air. We got to my house and we got in my mom's car because neither of us wanted to risk waking my parents up. A few minutes later the fog started coming around the curve and started down the hill. I remember wondering how fog could follow a road and not just cover everything up as it advanced. In time it did cover everything up though, and about that time the ground started shaking like it was a mild earthquake. The shaking got more intense as the fog got thicker and engulfed everything. A couple of minutes later we saw a huge leg pass by the car we were sitting in, and whatever was attached to it kept walking down the road, all the time covered in that weird thick fog. A few minutes later the shaking stopped and the fog passed us by, although I could still see the tail of it moving into the forest that was at the bottom of the hill on the dead-end road I lived on. We looked at each other questioning what had just happened to us, neither of us quite believing our eyes but being too smart to disregard what we had experienced. I let her stay in my room that night until the sun started to come up and walked her back home in time for us to both go to school that morning. Did I believe in giants? Not until that night I didn't. Frankly, I don't know what the fuck that was, but it sure as hell was not anything I would consider normal. That was 35 years ago, and to this day it still terrifies and fills me with a sense of wonder when I think about that night. I'ma head out now. I woke up without my pants, pajama trousers, and they're nowhere to be found. I'm 100% sure I went to sleep with them. I've checked pretty much anywhere and they're nowhere to be found in my home. I have no history of sleepwalking. I'm stressing over this a lot. Does anybody have any idea what could have happened? Any theory and question is welcome. P.S. This happened today. Fell at sleep at 1 a.m. I used 2 alarm clocks. One at 7 a.m. and one at 7:30 a.m. Definitely woke up at the second one. I've checked the whole house for this specific pair of pants. I really don't know which community to post to. I lived in a house where I'm convinced I was seeing the ghost of the previous owner. When I was young, my family and I would move around a lot due to my dad's job. I saw a lot of towns and cities along the way, and frankly I enjoyed it. I was around 7 or 8 when we moved to this certain house. I can't remember the town's name, but it was a small town with nothing around but a Walmart. Enough about the background. This house was rustic looking. Not very updated. There was always this vibe about this house, like you weren't alone and everyone felt it despite trying to deny it. The first time I heard anything was once when I got home from school. I was the first one home, so I decided to play video game. I really into the game until I heard a creaking noise. Like when something is leaning back and forth in the wind. I could hear it coming from the dining room. I put my ear up to the dining room door and I'm certain the noise was coming from there. I open the door and the noise stops and I hear a huge thump. I feel a huge cold draft come out of the room. I try to figure out what the noise was but never figured it out. That same night, I fell asleep in the living room and again was woken up to the creaking noise. I ignore it, but for some reason I get this feeling of dread and look towards the hallway and can see the silhouette of someone in the prone position on the floor. I thought it was my brother trying to scare me, so I turn back and start to fall asleep until I hear a quiet voice call my name. I immediately feel dread and pull the covers over my head. I start to hear footsteps coming towards me and stop immediately above me. I'm literally about to shit bricks, in my head. I tell myself to start swinging. I didn't care who was standing there. I do just that and nobody is there. I go sleep in my mom's room and keep it to myself. The curiosity was killing me, so I asked one of the neighbors who has lived in the neighborhood for a while if he knew anything. This certain neighbor was an older man. He was usually a jokester and was always laughing and joking. As soon as I asked, his face turned serious. He asked me why I was asking so fast. Apparently the previous owner killed herself. Apparently she hung herself from the dining room chandelier. I swear I never felt chills like that before. I am convinced I was hearing her body rock back and forth, and that big thud was when the chandelier gave out. The only reason I say that is because the chandelier is no longer there. I'm also convinced she called my name.